Good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen Wilson. I'm the counselor for Ward 1, very proud counselor. Happy to be here and thank you for joining us. I think this is going to be the last warm evening. So the fact that you took time out to join us is greatly appreciated. We're here to talk about upcoming improvements to Sterling Street in the heart of Westdale. So I'm very pleased that you're able to join us. I'm also very pleased that we have a basket of riches of city staff who are going to lead us through this presentation and who are going to be available for all of your questions at the completion. So it's my great pleasure to introduce them now. Three baskets, kind of, if you will, from three different divisions. Sustainable mobility. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Danny Pimentel, who is the Senior Project Manager of Integrated Active Transportation. Charles Bellerano, he's also with Sustainable Mobility. From Engineering Services, Mitchell Knott, Andrew Filinchuk, and Haneen Aljbawi, Bakr Fayed from Transportation, and Fernando Chua. So welcome and thank you for attending this evening's session.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. Hopefully, we can convey the information you're looking for, and I look forward to answering any questions after the meeting. So, just wanted to go over a bit of the agenda and what are some of the items that we'll speak about today. First, we'll go over a bit of the project area, where it kind of is, and some of the surrounding uses and some of the infrastructure. A bit of the scope, kind of why we're doing this project, and what are some of the improvements that are going to be included. How this all ties in from a strategic level, some of the rationale and why we're doing it, and again, how it ties into some higher level corporate policies. We will go over the design concepts and what they may look like, identify the next steps, and then answer any questions or comments that may have. And then we can always follow up later as well if this goes long and we can't answer all questions. So first, in terms of the project area, with the project is Sterling Street, to the west, which is to the left of the screen, from Forsyth to the east, on the right of the screen, which is King Street, which is within that kind of red box. And then within here, we have some orange lines just identified of our existing cycling infrastructure. These solid lines are dedicated facilities, so on-road, painted bike lanes, which pretty much take up all of Sterling. So Sterling does have some existing facilities. There's some going into the McMaster property, which is to the west. And then by King Street, we have a bit of a mixture of facilities. We have some dedicated facilities west of Klein, but then we have in kind of the more the business area, a bit of a signed route, which then brings you into a bit more into the downtown, further east in the Westdale area, and then tying us into the downtown. Within Sterling Street, you can see identified here with those stop signs. Hopefully, they're easy to see. We have four always stop locations. So that means all four legs have to stop and alternate right of way, and then one signalized intersection at King Street. In terms of the scope for this project is a resurfacing. What that generally means is the asphalt will be kind of, for lack of better terms, ripped up and then kind of reapplied. And then there will be some additional concrete work, any deficient of sidewalks, and we'll speak a bit to that in terms of some intersection improvements, things like that, tying into a bit of some of the improved pedestrian crossings, things like reduction in curb radiuses, providing some slower speeds for vehicles making turns, as well as any additional pavement markings, things like ladder crossings or zebra crossings, really to kind of heighten the awareness for drivers that this is a pedestrian area. We'll also be looking into accommodating a raised intersection at Dalewood. Again, always stop, all four legs stop, but the raised intersection will definitely encourage and promote some slower speeds, as well as really identify the priority for pedestrians at that area. One of the key components from an active transportation piece is the inclusion or the enhancements to the cycling facilities. Currently, they are one on each side, separated by a painted line. the plan is to introduce a buffer, and then within that buffer to introduce some type of vertical deflection or some separation. So what you can see in the top right image is an example of Upper Paradise, which is on the mountain, excuse me, the West Mountain. And that's an example of some of the buffer area. So you can see the two lines with some diagonal hatching. The buffer area on Sterling, as we get into, will be a little wider than what you see in this image. But here you can see the buffer. You can see some of the flex posts, which are those either green or there's an orange and black to identify a bit of a hazard here. And then the curbing, which is in between those posts. What's shown here is what kind of used to be our typical practice or design, which would be two curbs between each post. We are planning to expand that spacing. So rather than going two curbs between posts, we are looking at 4 or 6 curbs between posts. And that's to try and improve some of the aesthetics, as well as reduce some of the maintenance costs, as we find the flex posts are replaced more frequently than the curbs are. So if we can introduce more curbs and less posts and still achieve the same separation, that would kind of be the direction that we'd like to go in. And then in the bottom image there that you can see, that is an example of a raised intersection. We do not have any currently in the city of Hamilton, so unfortunately we couldn't provide an example within the city, but this is an example within London, Ontario. And the key component here is that the intersection is raised to the height of the sidewalk, and that begins prior to the pedestrian crossing. So essentially you have a ramp up, and then from the crossing all around, it's all raised the same level as the sidewalk. And we'll get into a bit more detail into that a little bit later. In terms of some of the strategic rationale alignment, how this kind of all ties in to some bigger picture corporate policies. The first part, this enhances our citywide cycling network. So I mentioned Sterling Street is existing cycling facilities, but now we're getting into trying to provide protection or separation for those users, and really trying to encourage an all ages and abilities approach. And the idea of adding some of these barriers will encourage that use and hopefully attract more people to use it, as they may feel more safer or more comfortable. So this enhances that barrier piece, especially in the Westdale neighborhood. It does form a significant portion of our infrastructure that really connects, Westdale and McMaster to the downtown. If you go further east, as you go on King Street over the 403, we get into some more separated facilities, bi-directional, so you can go kind of two ways. So this kind of ties in to that whole piece and kind of creating that connection. I mentioned a bit about the enhancements to the pedestrian crossings. So today, a lot of it is just painted lines in terms of a crosswalk. The goal with this project would be to introduce a number of enhanced crossings, things like I mentioned the zebra crossings or the ladder crossings, white boxes with in between kind of black. You'll see a bit of it as the design goes in there, really heightening the awareness to drivers that this is a pedestrian area, as well as some reducing of curbs to essentially force drivers to make turns a little bit slower, and really pay more attention to any pedestrians kind of crossing the street. This really aligns with our Complete Streets and Vision Zero. Complete Streets was recently approved, I believe, last year, in terms of from a council perspective. And Complete Streets is really the idea or the concept of creating or designing spaces for all road users and really trying to balance the needs of all those road users. So really considering our vulnerable road users, cyclists, pedestrians, how can we make the space more comfortable for everybody, while still achieving the throughput and that level of service for motor vehicles. And then in terms of Vision Zero, which is really geared towards reducing any traffic related either serious injuries or fatalities, with really the goal of making that number zero. And this is really done through a data-based approach, and it really aims for kind of safer streets. And that can be done through a multitude of ways, such as education, enforcement, evaluation, and in this case, really engineering or design. So how can we design the road that would kind of mitigate any potential serious injuries or fatalities kind of before they happen. So one of the key elements within Sterling Street are some of the parking regulations. So most of Sterling Street doesn't permit on-street parking. There is a pocket, if you will, where there is permitted on-street parking. It is a time limit parking, I believe 1 hour, and primarily that pocket of parking is within the Dromore and Haddon area on the, I guess, north side. And there's approximately 15 on-street parking spaces there for anyone to use, whether they be residents, students, visitors, whatever that may be. And really, in an effort to get in some of the separated facilities, the buffer, the barriers, achieve some of the curb radius reduction, achieve some of the improvements to really again balance the needs of those vulnerable road users. The removal of parking to accommodate all that was kind of seen as the best approach. And then, excuse me, it will just make it for a cleaner design, kind of integrate the whole street within the cycling facilities. So some of the multimodal outcomes that will come out of this, and multimodal being, serving all road users, people on bikes, walkers, e-scooters. Overall, the pedestrian environment is going to be improved and enhanced, as I mentioned, with some of those crossings, as well as some of the reductions in some of the curb radiuses. The raised intersection will provide some of that enhancement. And generally, with the barriers themselves, they will provide greater space or greater separation from the motor vehicle lane to the sidewalks themselves, and provide an additional vertical measure besides the curb. So that'll be some of the ways we'll improve the pedestrian environment. And along those same lines with the barriers, will improve the feel, the comfort, and hopefully the safety of those people on bikes who choose to kind of ride up and down the street. From a vehicular perspective, the overall impacts to motor vehicles are expected to be, minor. There are some reductions in the existing lane widths, really again to align with some of our complete streets. But overall, it's not going to have a huge impact to motor vehicles. So again, trying to balance the need of all those road users, this will achieve that. I mentioned the lane widths. We understand that, recognize that there is transit service along Sterling Street, and the lane widths have been designed to accommodate transit vehicles comfortably, and they will be still circulating up and down the street. In terms of some next steps, we will definitely review any of the feedback received from this meeting, some of the stakeholders, and see if what can kind of be incorporated as we finalize the design of the infrastructure, with implementation planned for 2024, and what that means is for construction to start sometime in 2024, and then the implementation of the cycling facilities, raised intersection, all of the components we spoke about today would be planned to be implemented at that time. And I believe that would be it for our presentation. Again, thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you for joining us tonight on this lovely warm evening. And thank you to staff for lending your attention and your expertise and explaining why and when and what. Thank you all.